a little bit about us. We are the Unity Wellness Center again. I'm sorry, I have to change my, there we go. And we are a hub of connection and collaboration. We're going to be located in East Winston, east of 52. And our organization values mental health, holistic wellness, addiction recovery, health equity, and compassionate community care. So I am Sara Hines. I am the co-founder of the Unity Wellness Center. And just a little bit about me. I hold a bachelor's degree in psychology from Winston-Salem State, go Rams. I hold a master's degree in child and adolescent developmental psychology from Southern New Hampshire University. And I currently hold a North Carolina certification as a mental health and addiction recovery peer support specialist. And so we're gonna, as a way of introducing you and kind of telling you about our philosophy, we're gonna tell you first about our logo. So we really love our logo. We're very proud of it. And so the center of our logo is a global butterfly, as you can see, and it demonstrates our commitment to serve as a safe space for connection and personal transformation. The human form at the center of our logo represents the human body, and the figure is standing with open arms in a welcoming stance, which we see as a symbol of the internal openness required for personal growth. The wings of our butterfly are from our favorite social justice hymnal that says, "And we will rise higher and higher on the wings of compassion, justice, and hope." And we all want that. And so, the butterfly that you see represented in our logo represents the transformation and elevation of the mind, body, and spirit. And the hearts within the wings of our butterfly represent love, our connection, love, and our collective human heartbeat. The blue circle on the outside around our logo represents the energetic bond and interdependence of all living things between our Mother Earth, ourselves, and our community connection. So, why did we create the Unity Wellness Center of Winston-Salem? Well, beyond knowing that there is a great need for a different approach to health and wellness and mental health and wellness in our city, we also realize that health disparities, that were some of the ones that we're going to talk about today, are the things that fuel the cycles of trauma in our community. And when we understand that in order to heal those traumas, we have to first look at these disparities and some of these drivers in order to get to the root of the problem. We understand that in many of our marginalized communities, there is a lack of trust and a lack of collaboration that prevents the coming together of many of the organizations that would be better served in a collaborative sense with other organizations than out there on their own, because not one organization can solve this issue by themselves. Many of our neighbors, especially those that are disenfranchised and marginalized, feel disconnected from the very entities that are put in place to provide help and assistance in times of need. And we understand that there are vast unmet needs and barriers to care right here in our city of Winston-Salem. Okay, so this is a quote from one of our favorite poets. "The wound is the place where the light enters you." Now, we believe at the Unity Wellness Center that the wound, that which produces our pain and our suffering, can become the very sources of our own personal healing. And we find that when we share those pieces of ourselves that we usually keep the most private, when we share with others, we allow not only do we shine the light on our own wounds, but we help others open themselves up to the light of healing also. So when we talk about being wounded, we all have experienced some traumas. And so as a way of getting to know you and becoming part of your community, I'm going to share some of my wounds with you. As a kid out of foster care, I have a lot of scars. And so I've been homeless. I've been hungry, I've been incarcerated, I've been abused, I've known physical violence, domestic violence, community violence, I've been raped, I've been molested, I've been an addict. And with all of those wounds and all of those scars, what I found was all of the things that I thought weighed me down actually became my superpower. They were the places that allowed me to let not only the light into myself and find healing, but as I shared my stories and my traumas with others, I helped others find their own path to healing. And so we have to understand that I'm not unusual and my wounds aren't unusual. There are many people just like me suffering in silence. And what we want to do is encourage everyone to share and not be silent and allow yourself a space for healing. So, as a mental health professional, I want to talk to you about the mental health of our youth right here in Winston-Salem. So, um, in the Youth Risk Behavior Survey from 2019, a survey that was done of 1,800 high school students here in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County, it was found that 1 out of 9 of our high school students has experienced sexual violence in the past 12 months. And 1 out of 9 of those high school students has attempted or contemplated a suicide plan in the past 12 months. As if that were not bad enough, out of the mouths of babes, our middle school students are telling us that 1 out of 8 of our middle school students has attempted suicide over his or her lifetime. That is a devastating statistic when you think about the suffering of our young people. And if our young people are suffering so terribly, imagine what the parents may be going through in addition to that. And that was before the pandemic. Now, we've all just been through one of the most traumatic years in any of our existence, or at least I know in mine. And so what we realize is that during this pandemic, the things that have been exasperated, that create these traumas and drive these traumas, more social isolation, more financial strain on our families, more trauma and violence in and out of the home, higher rates of substance use and abuse, and then a rise in the time spent on technology and less time outside. I know my eyes hurt every day that I have to do one more Zoom meeting. Nothing against this Zoom meeting. I'm happy to be here. But we know that this is a problem right now, having our kids on so much screen time for our children right now and ourselves, more educational disparities, which I'm witnessing every day in my own life. My 7-year-old grandson has suffered tremendously by being out of the classroom in this past year. And to the point where we're finding it difficult to help him catch up. And so he's going to suffer the ramifications of what this last year has done with just being on school remotely. And also the loss of health and deaths due to COVID-19 has been devastating in our communities. Not only does it sadden us, but it weakens our family units when we lose pivotal pieces of that family unit. And we've lost mothers and fathers, grandmothers and grandfathers, aunts and uncles, brothers and sisters, and it has been devastating for all of us. So when we talk about the things that are driving trauma in our community, one of the most destabilizing things that can happen is an eviction. And if you've never been evicted, I can tell you it's morally depressing and it leaves you feeling hopeless and helpless. So in this past year, during this pandemic, right here in our city, our courts have had over 3,000 eviction hearings in our courtrooms during a pandemic while there was a moratorium. Think about that. The scientific data solidly links evictions to an increase of some of the most horrific drivers of health disparities: suicide, accidental drug and alcohol mortality, worse mental health and anxiety, depression, and psychological distress. I can tell you, I know for a fact, I've been depressed and anxious like I've never been in my life for this past year. It has been a learning experience to feel so helpless during this pandemic. We see worse physical health. People are reporting that their health and it's just not been good. We see more adverse birth outcomes and lower levels of educational achievement in our children, with higher levels of child maltreatment, physical and sexual, in and out of the home, and lower quality housing for our families. All of these things drive the cycles of trauma within our community. So we're going to talk, let's talk a little bit about the demographics of Winston-Salem, so that some of this conversation that we're going to delve into will make a little bit more sense. So the median income household for the city of Winston-Salem is a little over $44,000 a year, with a poverty rate of 19%. And the racial demographics, or the breakup of races in our city, is, as you can see, a bit unbalanced. 47% of our residents are white, with 35% being Black, 13% being Hispanic, and 3% other races, and 2% being Asian. Having said that, Lindsay's going to share some of the detailed information about our local health disparities. But first, let's take in some of the big picture data. So take a moment and familiarize yourself with this map. Now, on this map, you see a large red line. That red line is Highway 52, okay? And you see on the east side of Highway 52, you see the 6 lower wealth census tracts in Winston-Salem. They'll be represented in magenta. And west of 52, you see the 5 most wealthy census tracts in Winston-Salem, represented in green. So, Highway 52. Let's talk about the racial divide that we see indicated by Highway 52. As you can see, on the magenta side, which is the east side of Highway 52, the majority of the population, 93%, is Black, Indigenous, people of color, with 92% of the citizens in the 5 most wealthy census tracts in Winston-Salem being white. So yeah, that's startling on its own. But then let's just go a little bit farther. So let's look at the median household income. Well, east of 52, it seems to be less than $20,000 a year, while in the most wealthy census tract, it is well over $100,000 a year, with an average poverty rate on east of 52 at 50%, compared to the average poverty rate of 5% in the 5 most wealthy census tracts in our city. That's a big divide. Let's just talk about let's talk about life expectancy. As you can see, again, it looks like we're just showing you the same map over and over again, I'm sure, when in reality, these are different maps indicating the exact same divide, that everywhere we look along Highway 52, there is a discrepancy. The life expectancy of someone living in our 6 lower census tracts, which is east of 52, is just 70 years, while those living in our 5 most wealthy census tracts have a life expectancy of 81 years. That is an 11-year difference. If someone gave you a guarantee of 11 extra years on your life, what could you do with 11 extra years? I know I could do a lot, and I could use 11 extra years. You know, that is almost a 17-year difference in the life expectancy of people in less than a 5-mile distance from each other. Wow. So when I walk out my door in East Winston, the guy 5 miles away from me has a life expectancy, and that is 11 years higher than mine. That's startling. Go ahead, Lindsay. So now that I've depressed you with some of our racial and life expectancy demographics in our city, let me tell you about us. So how Unity Wellness Center became. Lindsay and I both participated in the social justice rallies of 2020, protesting the death of George Floyd and our own local brother, John Neville. And during one of these events, I presented a spoken word poem that I had written called Angry Black Woman. And Lindsay and her lovely daughter, Julia, felt compelled to write a response to me, a very heartfelt and warm and welcoming response to my poem about my life story. And from there, what can I say? East meets West, so to speak. Magenta met green. And what we realized was, while we were two women that came from two very different backgrounds and lived experiences, what we had in common was our love for our city and our belief that we can help heal each other by connecting with each other. And from there, the Unity Wellness Center, the idea with the Unity Wellness Center was born. I'm gonna turn it over to Lindsay and let her tell you about some of our health demographics.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So yeah, I'm Lindsay. I'm one of the co-founders of the Unity Wellness Center, and I am a local bilingual family physician. I speak both English and Spanish, and I'm just really concerned about the health and wellness of our communities. You know, I've had the privilege of calling Winston-Salem my home for the past 28 years, but you know, with time, I've definitely come to realize just how divided our city is, you know, both literally and figuratively by Highway 52, you know, with our community members that live east of Highway 52, you know, experiencing significantly higher rates of trauma, higher rates of poverty, and also significantly reduced access to living wage jobs, affordable housing, and healthy nutrition. And, you know, based on these disparities, it's not surprising that our community members living east of Highway 52 experience higher rates of chronic disease, worse physical and mental health outcomes, and more economic hardships. And, you know, these pervasive inequalities also help explain why in 2015, Harvard economist Dr. Raj Chetty, you know, his data suggested that the city of Winston-Salem is arguably one of the most difficult cities in the United States in which to escape childhood poverty. So we're going to go ahead and delve in a little bit more deeply about our local health disparities. And we're going to start looking at the prevalence of chronic disease. And just so you know, sadly, as we review these disparities, it will become painfully obvious that the color of a person's skin, as well as the place where a person lives, has a tremendous impact on a person's opportunity to live a healthy life. And the data that I will be sharing was actually, we got it from the CDC's Places Initiative, which provides some local data to improve health. And the data that we're showing mainly reflects the statistics on adults in our community. But the maps you'll be looking at reflects 2016 data, but I'll also be sharing the latest 2018 data that was just released actually in December of 2020. Okay, so as we look through these maps, we're gonna look at the prevalence of chronic disease. An important thing to remember is the darker the color, the brown on the maps, the higher the prevalence of the chronic disease. And you're going to notice a very clear pattern, okay? So this first map shows the current asthma rates. And once again, the darker the brown, the higher the rates of the disease. And I'm going to have a little highlight here. So you can see right here, east of Highway 52, this darker brown indicates higher rates of asthma. When we go into the next slide, it shows chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. And once again, kind of east of Highway 52 along or close to Highway 52, we see higher rates of COPD. I want to mention these two census tracts. These are 3.02 and 3.01. 3.02 census tract is 98.5% Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And similarly, 3.01 is over 94% Black, Indigenous, or people of color. So unfortunately, as we go through these health disparities, you'll notice that these same disparities that are present usually east of Highway 52 are very concentrated in these two census tracts. This next map shows the rate of high blood pressure among adults. And once again, the darker the brown, the higher rates of higher blood pressure. And we see these same two census tracts adversely affected. Next slide shows high cholesterol in adults. And once again, this is a little bit more scattered, but we still see a concentration of higher cholesterol in and along Highway 52, especially east of Highway 52. And now let's look at coronary heart disease. Once again, same pattern that we're seeing with higher disparities in east of Highway 52 or in close proximity. And now let's look at chronic kidney disease. Once again, the same pattern of health disparities with higher rates. And specifically, the most recent data from 2018 actually indicate that that our community members living east of Highway 52 or in these two census tracts are over 2 times more likely to experience chronic kidney disease over their lifetime compared to our 5 most wealthy census tracts. The next slide shows the rate of diabetes and in adults. And once again, look at this dark brown color indicates a higher rate of disease. In fact, in these census tracts east of Highway 52 or in the census tract 3.02 or 3.01, you're over 2.5 times more likely to develop diabetes as an adult if you live in these areas compared to our 5 most wealthy census tracts. And finally, when we look at stroke, also according to our most recent 2018 data, you're over twice as likely to suffer a stroke if you live east or along Highway 52 compared to if you live in one of the 5 most wealthy census tracts. So let's go ahead and move on and look at health insurance status in Winston-Salem. So the darker the color of the blue on the map, the higher the percentage of people who lack health insurance. Okay, so obviously this darker blue represents areas of people where they lack health insurance. And in fact, according to the latest data released in December of 2020, people living east of Highway 52 or along Highway 52 are over 3 times as likely to lack health insurance. And of course, this is a devastating statistics because we know that if you, well, first of all of us know how difficult it is to afford healthcare, even if you have health insurance. And when you lack health insurance, of course, not only does that make it very difficult for you to receive care, but it causes people to delay care, right? Right? So a lot of times the disease or the pain get that much worse because people are scared that they can't afford to pay for the care. They're scared they'll get turned away. And then when people do receive care and they lack insurance, we know that they get substandard care. And we also know that there's worse medical outcomes. So this is another big issue contributing to our health disparities. Let's switch gears a little bit. These next maps are going to show access to preventative health services in Winston-Salem. Once again, the darker the color blue on the maps, the lower the access is to important preventative medical services. So this first map shows the percentage of women over the age of 65 who are up to date on important preventative services. This specifically looks at flu shots, pneumonia vaccines, mammograms, and colon cancer screening. And you can see this dark blue that's concentrated east of Highway 52 and the 2 previously mentioned census tracts shows that our community members living in these areas are very underscreened. They're not receiving these important preventative services. And unfortunately, when we go into the next map, we're looking at men over the age of 65, right? It looks identical, right? Significant disparities. And this is looking for men, it's looking at flu shots, pneumonia vaccines, and colon cancer screening. The next slide shows visits to dentists or dental cleaning, dental services in adults. And boy, look at this dark blue east and along Highway 52. So significant health disparities there in terms of dental health in our community. And then this next one looks at fecal occult blood testing, or essentially colon cancer screening. And once again, the darker the blue, the lower the rate of colon cancer screening. And this is a particularly devastating slide because we know that it's essentially our community members that are greater risk of developing colon cancer. We know if you're a Black American, you're 20% more likely to develop colon cancer, and you're 40% more likely to die of colon cancer. Compared to other racial groups. And we know this is the percentage, this is an area where we have a very high percentage of our community members are Black, Indigenous, or people of color. So essentially we have the most significant underscreening in the population that would benefit the most from screening. Now let's switch to quality of life indicators in Winston-Salem. Once again, the darker the color, the brown on the map, the worse the quality of life reported. So let's look at all teeth lost among adults 18 years or older. I'm sorry, 18 years or older. And you can see with this dark brown color, we have significant tooth loss in our community members. And this is devastating, not only in terms of chronic pain. If you all have had dental pain like I have, it's an incapacitating pain. And of course, and then the challenges that it causes with chewing and the way it affects your nutrition. And we know that people have chronic dental disease or periodontal disease, it can increase the risk for heart disease. So we know this not only affects their physical health, but it also affects their emotional health. So someone, if someone is concerned about the appearance of their teeth, or maybe their dentures do not fit appropriately, it affects them with eating and social encounters. So this is causing significant trauma in many of our community members in our city. This next slide shows sleeping less than 7 hours a night. And once again, we see the same pattern of more sleep deprivation east or along Highway 52. And, you know, I'm very passionate about sleep health, because really getting adequate sleep is probably the most important health habit that any of us could have. And so we know that people that are chronically sleep deprived, meaning the person sleeps less than 7 hours a night, we know that they're at higher risk for cardiovascular disease. They're higher risk for stroke, higher risk for heart attack, higher risk for diabetes, higher risk for weight gain. We see worse mental health. We see worse physical health. We see worse immune function. People that are significantly sleep deprived only produce about half of the antibodies to the flu shot than people that are not sleep deprived. We see higher rates of difficulties with attention, with focus. And we're now starting to see a lot of data showing chronically sleep deprived people are much higher risk for cognitive decline and Alzheimer's. So this is a public health issue. And then let's look at the no leisure time physical activity reported. And, you know, and here that means, so my personal interpretation, though this isn't a scientific interpretation, but, you know, so if you're living in an area with significant health disparities, if you're living in poverty, if you're living in an area of systemic trauma, you know, our community members are so concerned with doing everything they can to survive and to provide and to care for their family that you know, just leisure time physical activity, it's simply, it's a privilege that's not available to everyone in our community. And then we're looking, this next slide shows physical health not good. So the darker the brown, the more people are self-reporting that their physical health is not good. And of course, this makes total sense, right? Because this perfectly mirrors the areas of our health disparities that we have locally. And then when we look at mental health not being good, once again, we see the same pattern. East and along Highway 52, our community members are reporting that their mental health is not good, and that is not surprising based on the day-to-day trauma that our families are having to cope with. So how does our city of Winston-Salem match up to other regions in Forsyth County in terms of health disparity? Well, pretty miserably, to be honest. So let's take so Census Tract 6, which is the area where we want to be located. Let me go back to the prior map. Let me show you. It's Census Tract 6, that right there, okay? So that census tract is the epicenter of all health disparities in Forsyth County. So out of 93 census tracts, Census Tract 6 ranks the absolute worst when it comes to the rates of coronary heart disease, stroke, diabetes, hypertension, chronic kidney disease, COPD, arthritis, obesity, sleep deprivation, no leisure time physical activity, physical health not good, and lowest access to dental care. And then Census Tract 6 ranks second worst in Forsyth County for high cholesterol, all teeth lost in adults. Over 41.7% of all adults in that census tract have lost all their teeth. And also not being up to date on preventative services in men and women over the age of 65. And Census Tract 6 ranks third worst in Forsyth County for smoking and asthma, fifth worst for lacking health insurance, and sixth worst for mental health not good. And, you know, that last was sixth worst, you know, mental health not good. Could be one of two things. One is that I think our community members are so brave and they're so resilient and they collaborate so well as a community that they're making the best out of the situation. And also could be that there's significant stigma around mental health and the mental health resources are simply not even available. It's not even talked about. It's not an option for many of our community members to get compassionate mental health care. So what's driving these health disparities? Well, obviously it's very complex, but you know, our local and national health disparities are related to a bunch of different drivers of health. So quality, you know, access to quality medical care. Do you have access to healthy foods? Do you have access to transportation, to safe housing? Do you have living wage jobs? What are your educational opportunities? What's your level of social and community support? Are you living in a safe neighborhood? Are you surrounded by green, healthy environments? What's the air pollution quality? What's the water quality like? What's the lead level in the paints in your home? You know, is there affordable childcare? Do you have financial stability? Have you inherited generational financial stability? So all of these factors play into our local health disparities. And then when you tag onto that, right, racism. We know that Black, Indigenous, and people of color living in our city are disproportionately impacted by racism, which of course only contributes to our ever widening health disparities that exist between East and West Winston. And then when you take into account other factors, other kind of discriminatory factors, such as disability status, poverty, your gender, sexual orientation, citizenship status, ethnicity, age, language barriers. So all of these factors, these are all kind of they all intersect and they contribute to our local health disparities. And my last slide before I hand it back to Sarah is I want to talk about, so this was released by the CDC in March of 2020, and they create a social vulnerability index, and they base it on 15 different census variables based on socioeconomic status and household composition and disability, race, ethnicity, housing type, your access to transportation. And essentially, if you can see right here, this is census tract 6 again, but look at all along East Winston-Salem and along Highway 52, we rank highest in terms of the top 25% in terms of social vulnerability. And this simply reflects that our communities is looking at essentially a community's vulnerability to how are they going to be, how can a community respond to disasters, either man-made or they're natural disasters or disease related to this pandemic. And what it shows is that we are a very vulnerable community. And we are going through tremendous vulnerability, tremendous suffering. And so it is time, it's just time for us to come up with a new approach to healing, right? Based on kind of radical compassion, radical inclusion, and radical collaboration. And that's the reason why we created the Unity Wellness Center. We need that radically different healing space to enter into our city. Sarah? Oh, you're muted, sweetie.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Lindsay.
Oh, you're muted again.
Am I unmuted?
You're good.
Okay, there we go. All right, so thank you, Lindsay, for that. Here we are, the City of Arts and Innovation. So Dr. Peral just took you on a tour, a visual tour of the cycles of trauma in our city. And if you didn't already know this information, then we're glad we could bring it to you today. If you were already aware and you feel even more enlightened, then you should. But if you're not outraged by what we just showed you, then maybe we should go over the maps again. Because I'm outraged. You know, we love our city. Winston-Salem is a great city, you know, and there are so many things to celebrate about Winston-Salem, the City of Arts and Innovation, you know, and there's so many wonderful people, and our communities are so resilient and so compassionate. But I got to tell you, as a survivor in this city who has experienced trauma in this city, I know that there is a dark side. There is a side of not enough of. There is a side of too many lacking. I understand what it is to be vulnerable to everything, to not have the ability to create a healthier space for myself and my family. We need to bring the healing power of the arts, the transformative power of healing through connection. And we need to breathe new innovation into our healing spaces. We need to create spaces where every trauma is addressed, every trauma is heard, every person is seen, every need is addressed. We need new ideas. We need to tap into what our city offers us. All of these artists and musicians and chefs and creative people holding space for each other is where we'll find our healing. Those are our simple solutions to our complex issues. Let's get back to community. Let's figure out how to see each other. The Unity Wellness Center understands how desperately we need a new approach to health and wellness. And so under one roof, we intend to offer 9 core services to start. Mental health services and all of our services will be free of charge. Mental health services with a licensed clinical psychologist who specializes in child and adolescent mental health and trauma. Peer support mentoring programs run by me and other peer supports like me for mental health, addiction recovery, and everyday life challenges. Everybody can use a buddy. Nobody's exempt from needing a little bit of help. We will offer comprehensive health and wellness assessments with board certified family physician who is passionate about our mental health and our holistic wellness in our communities. We will see to it that you get expedited connections with local medical and mental health services, because no one needs to wait a day or a week or a month when they're in a mental or a medical emergency. We need help then, and we're going to make sure you get it then. We will provide personalized navigation for community resources. We'll help you get over the hurdles. We'll help you find the spaces that you need to be in. We'll see to it that you get connected to the resources that will be the most beneficial for you and your family and your life. We will use our beautiful arts and innovative arts-based healing programs to allow people to express not only their traumas, but their joys through all of the arts and all creative spaces. We will allow our community-driven solutions to eliminate our local health disparities, and compassionate services for our formerly incarcerated brothers and sisters through the FIT program will help them retransition into their communities, find their space again with their families and their friends. And finally, we're going to provide free transportation to and from our center, because we know access can be the worst hurdle of all. And so we don't want you to wonder how you're going to get there. We're going to make sure you can get there and get back. And we do this because we see the need. We've been out in our community. We know what's necessary. We know how our community members are hurting, but we also know that there's this untapped potential of lived experience and people who want to share with each other and find healing with each other, make community, see each other, be with each other. That's what we want. We are currently working very hard to get our physical location up and running. We're going to launch our startup campaign to cover our startup costs and our operational costs for our first 6 months of operation. But beyond that, we're already out there doing the work, engaging in our community, establishing community partnerships. We're building trust with the people that we want to serve. We're allowing them to, we're meeting them where they are, when they are, without requirements or restrictions. We are disseminating unbiased and accurate medical information through our social media sites. And we are out there serving our community however we can right now, collaborating with other organizations, building partnerships and providing what services we can right now, even without a physical location, because what we know is the connection comes first, the trust comes first. So we want to get to know the community that we want to serve. So we're out there. We're here for you. We want you to know about us. We have a website that's up. If you have any questions, if you want to get connected with us, I'm going to end this by echoing this sentiment: make a connection with a stranger. If you don't know somebody who has a different life experience than you, go meet someone. Go make a new connection with someone with a different perspective. Find out what it's like to be on the other side. And then in turn, share some of yourself with them. Make a friend, build a friendship, create a relationship, and find out that in the end, there are more things that connect us than there are that divide us. And when we share of ourselves, we find healing for each other in each other. Let's all do that. That's what the Unity Wellness Center is. Thank you for having us. We'll take questions if you have any.
Thank you both so much. What an informative, detail-packed, and passionate presentation. I can tell that this is just, there's so much passion that goes into this. And it's such a subject that is easy to look away from because it's so vast. I mean, it's just, where do you start? You know, how do you break it down? How do you say, what string do we pull on first? Because it's so interconnected with economics and race and location and history, the history of redlining and, you know, just our whole long history. I mean, like you said, if you're not appalled, and I'm thinking, if you're not overwhelmed by the sheer volume of work there is to do, but we can't look away from that volume. You know, we can't just say, oh, it's too much. We have to start somewhere, because this is everyone's community. And, you know, if we've learned anything here at Flywheel over the last year, it takes every individual person, it takes every individual member here, you know, to keep our community strong, just in our little bubble, right? And we just have to start somewhere. So how do you unravel? I mean, you laid out the 9 areas where you're going to provide help. But what is your main focus in, if you could pull one string and fix the most problems at once? What would that be? What?
Well, I'll start.
Yeah.
From a mental health perspective, I would say quiet is a killer. When we remain silent about things, they're allowed to fester and metastasize. It is only when we drag all of our traumas out into the light, when we truly start talking about the things that no one wants to talk about, you know, when we truly, authentically share of ourselves, not only our triumphs, but our trials. You know, what I do professionally is create a roadmap for others through the trials and tribulations I've been through. And I can only do that if I'm willing to authentically share what trauma looks like. If I'm willing to be vulnerable about the things that we hold most quietly to ourselves, our shames. You know, I believe that quality mental health first requires an authentic look at where the roots started. And when we can do that, when we can see each other's stories, but also see the people behind the stories and beyond the stories, beyond the traumas, then we start to create bridges of healing. If I don't know your stressors, then I can't in turn empathize with where you've been. And so I'll take you on my journey first as a way to allow you to then open yourself up to your own journey. Authenticity is key. Stigma around mental health is preventing healthy healing. And so as a survivor of mental health issues and abuse, substance abuse issues, I'm going to set it out there and I'm going to take away the stigma. And I'm going to say, I'm the girl that lives next door to you. I had my own set of problems, but I found some solutions. Let me share my solutions with you. And in turn, maybe you can share some of yours with me. And together we can help heal each other. Because the reality is, I need you just as much as you need me. That's what community means. It means that we come together in the worst and the best. and find commonality in all of that. And that's the beauty of collaboration and connection and healing through connecting with other people. So if you don't know somebody different than you, if you don't know somebody who's lived something different, go somewhere you've never been. Sit down and have a coffee and a conversation with somebody who maybe doesn't look like you, or doesn't think like you, or doesn't worship like you, or doesn't believe like you. And let's see what we have in common and where we can help each other. That's what the Unity Wellness Center is.
Thank you, Sarah. And I just want to kind of add on top of that. So from a strategic standpoint, right? Like if for our two first programs we're going to open up is that child and adolescent psychologist and the peer support. Those are going to be the very first two programs that where we see there's the biggest gap and there's the greatest need. So that's going to be a kind of a strategic priority for us. But and just to understand like some of the things that we're doing, Sheila, you had a great question, kind of where are we? We hope to have a space and to open our doors, hopefully by end of fall of 2021. You know, pending funding, we're in conversations with our city council members and with our county commissioners and with our mayor and with our local healthcare institutions and amazing community partners. So we're hoping to open our doors and at least have those critical two, if not ideally also the personalized navigator, the three. You know, it has to be according to funding rolling out, but those are, like I say, the child and adolescent mental health and the peer support. And being our top two priorities. But for example, we are helping host along with the Mental Health Association of Forsyth County and along with the Triad Restorative Justice and the Hispanic League and some other wonderful community partners along with the Unity Wellness Center. We're sponsoring a community health event in honor of the BIPOC Mental Health Month, which is July. We're going to sponsor an event called this is going to be at Rupert Bell Park on July 24th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And the title of it is You Are Not Alone. And it's called Artistic and Creative Expressions of Trauma and Healing. And we're going to have a 4-hour talent show of our community members that are going to be showcasing their talent, whether that is puppetry, storytelling, dance, monologues, songwriting, music, you know, you name it, martial arts, cooking. So we're going to have about hopefully between 20 to 30 community members highlight their talents and speak about their trauma and how their trauma has been their kind of lived trauma and how they've been able to use kind of artistic and creative expression to help heal through that trauma. So there's an example of, we don't have a physical location, but we're going to have a pretty awesome event with for the entire family. So anyway, we're thrilled about that. But yes, we hope to get up and running by end of fall 2020.
And that event so beautifully ties together what Sarah was saying about arts and innovation and using that for healing, and hopefully there can be some interconnectedness between those artists participating in that event, maybe as volunteers and such, and cross that, kind of cross-pollinate those missions and those talents.
Right.
Wonderful.
Because I mean, Sarah's poetry was the catalyst for us meeting. You know, it was one poem. It was one poem speaking with incredible bravery, just, you know, and it transformed my life. It transformed my family's life. So, you know, the power of how you can bond through art and creative expression. So we're just super excited about that event.
Sarah, personally, is poetry something you do regularly? You perform regularly? Or write regularly?
I write regularly. Yeah, spoken word was my escape. A kid who didn't think they had a voice found it silently within poetry, and so spoken word is how I work out some of my things. It has been a great healing space for me, and over this past year, with everything, with the pandemic and with all of the social justice issues, it has just become this connector where I can find common ground with other people through my poetry. So yeah, it's a big part of what I do and how I maintain not only my sobriety, but how I maintain my mental health is I write it out. That's what I do.
Fabulous. Thanks for sharing that. So what can we, couple more questions, 12:57. so what can we as individuals do? I know that you are, looking in various areas for funding. You need large scale funding. Is there something that individuals can participate in, both in terms of funding and in terms of giving of our talents, our bodies, to help Unity Wellness as well?
Sarah, do you want to take that, or?
Go ahead and take that, Lindsay.
Yeah, so through our website, it is possible for people to give kind of private donations. Like I said, we're gonna start a little startup campaign also through our website shortly, but even more so we have that contact us. We've been so blessed. We've had so many community members just reach out and say, hey, I'm retired or almost retired, or I would like to do this and that. And we set up phone conversations and Zoom conversations. And so we're already in the process. And we sponsored a big event in February where we helped clothe a lot of our community members in February. And we had what, Sarah, 35 of the most incredible community volunteers you could possibly imagine. In fact, we have an event this Saturday that we're helping sponsor. Sarah and I are going to do blood pressure screening and mental health screening if anyone wants to join us for that. We have the big event in July. So we're constantly looking for volunteers. And some of those are behind the scenes. Some of those are, we need help on every level, right? Because like you said, it's so big. And it's gonna take a village, it's gonna take, and not just a village within Unity Wellness Center, but throughout our whole community. So we just found that everyone who's reached out to us has so much to offer, and we've really just been really blessed by getting to know people's interests and talents. So yeah, anyone that's inspired at all to get connected, we just will have conversations or Zooms or meet up in person, share some coffee and listen to your ideas and your experiences, and it will help enhance our mission.
Right. And once we open up physical space, there will be opportunities to come in and do day-to-day peer-to-peer connections, where we're going to do a senior peer support program, a foster child peer support program. There are opportunities to come together with other people and help other people in everyday ways that will be available all the time. This is community driven. In order for us to succeed, the community must buy into the vision. And the vision is that we can each heal each other through our connections to each other. And so that's what we're trying to foster. We want everyone to bring your talent, bring your knowledge, bring your story to the Unity Wellness Center and share it with us and with everyone else. And let's find solutions together.
Fantastic. The event sounds very exciting. I'm going to put in
a
request for that one. And so in order to get in touch with you, that we can just go through the contact form on your website to inquire about that. And thanks, Sheila. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Sheila.
And so tell us the website one more time and how to get in touch with you, and then we'll sign off.
It's Unity Wellness Center altogether. So Unity Wellness Center WS for Winston-Salem.com. So if you just Google Unity Wellness Center Winston-Salem, we will come up.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for giving us your time today and your passion and your mission. And we look forward to watching Unity Wellness Center of Winston-Salem grow and serve our communities and eliminate health disparities in Winston-Salem.
Yes.
Thank you for inviting us.
You're welcome.
Thank
you so much. Bye-bye.
Take care.